15 years ago, I gave a plucked pheasant to a white fox starving to death by the side of the road. 15 years later, a young woman, dressed in a white that seemed to shimmer, with a beauty so striking it felt like a dream, appeared before me. "Excuse me," she said. "Do you remember a pheasant in the snow 15 years ago?" My heart leaped. I thought the fox had come to repay my kindness. But then the woman drew a long sword from thin air. "I was the pheasant," she said, "and I'm here to settle the score. My name is Leo Ross. I'm a line cook, nothing special, just trying to keep my parents' struggling old diner from going completely under. This afternoon, the place was dead. I was dozing on the counter when the bell over the door chimed. A girl in a long white dress walked in. She was gorgeous. Pale skin, luminous eyes, the kind of person you see in paintings. She just stood there, and the whole greasy spoon seemed to brighten up a bit. I rubbed my eyes and straightened up. "Hey, can I get you something?" She didn't answer, just stared at me. Her expression was a complicated mix of curiosity, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite place. Raw animosity. My stomach did a little flip-flop. Since when did customers look like they were here to collect on a blood debt? She drifted closer, the dark wood of the counter looking ancient and rich next to her. When she spoke, her voice was cool and clear like a mountain spring. 15 years ago, the 8th of December, the abandoned chapel on the west side of town. Do you remember? I froze. 15 years. I was just a kid back then. I rummaged through the dusty corners of my memory. December 8th, the old chapel, a snowstorm. A fuzzy image surfaced. The snow was coming down thick that day. I was taking a shortcut home and past the ruined chapel. Tucked in a corner was a pure white fox, curled in a ball, looking like it was on its last legs. I felt a pang of pity. I happened to be carrying a pheasant I'd managed to trap in the woods, already plucked and ready for the soup pot. After a moment's hesitation, I tossed the bird to the fox. "I remember," I said, my voice filled with excitement. "I save a white fox. Are you?" I could feel a grin spreading across my face. This is how it works in the storybooks, right? You save a magical creature, and one day it comes back to repay you. This girl didn't exactly look mortal. Was she the fox, transformed, here, to grant me a wish? Maybe she'd give me a secret martial arts technique, or a chest full of gold. I could finally pay off the mortgage on this place. I rubbed my hands together, forcing what I hoped was my most charming smile. It was nothing, really. Glad I could help. How's that fox doing these days? A chilling smile touched the corner of the girl's mouth. I have no idea how it's doing. Her voice dropped, but I'm not doing so great. With a flick of her wrist, a gleaming long sword materialized in her hand, its tip aimed directly at my throat. An icy aura radiated from the blade, making the hairs on my neck stand on end. My brain short-circuited. This wasn't in the script. "Well, lady, what's this?" "Let me ask you," she said, her voice dripping with Arctic frost. 15 years ago, when you saved that fox, was it you who threw at the chicken?" I nodded dumbly. "Yeah, that was my pheasant." "Excellent." Her eyes flashed. "I was the pheasant. Now you die." "Wait." With the point of the sword an inch from my throat, I unleashed a roar fueled by pure, unadulterated terror. The blade stopped. I could feel its sharp energy, a phantom sting on my skin. Cold sweat trickled down my forehead and into my eyes, burning. "Mum? Ms. Pheasant, divine bird of vengeance. Are we sure there hasn't been a misunderstanding here?" I shot my hands up in surrender, my mind racing. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I being hunted by a piece of poultry? A misunderstanding? She let out a cold laugh, her eyes narrowing. "You plucked me bald, tossed me to my natural predator, and you're asking if there's a misunderstanding." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I mean, when she put it like that, it did sound pretty bad. But I was trying to save the fox. I stammered, trying to defend myself. It was starving. "So, I deserve to die?" She shot back, her voice rising as the sword crept a millimeter closer. I felt a cold line on my throat as a bead of blood welled up. "This is it. I'm going to be killed by a chicken." I knew I should have checked my horoscope this morning. Just as I was resigning myself to my bizarre fate, she suddenly grunted, her face going deathly pale. The hand holding the sword began to tremble. The weapon that had been threatening my life clattered to the floor. She swayed, catching herself on the counter to keep from collapsing. I looked at her, then at the sword on the ground, then felt my neck to confirm it was still attached to my head. This was my chance. I did a clumsy, desperate somersault over the counter and scrambled for the door. My hand had just touched the doorknob when a weak, but still frosty, voice came from behind me. You run, and I will hunt you to the ends of the earth, and then I will boil you into a soup. I froze solid. I turned back. She had collapsed onto the floor, curled into a ball, her brow furrowed in pain and her forehead slick with sweat. That pristine white dress was a stark contrast to my greasy diner floor. A war raged in my head. Run? In her condition, I could easily get away. But what if she recovered and made good on her promise? She's a pheasant who can summon swords out of thin air. Don't run. Stick around and wait for her to get better, so she can try to kill me again. I'm not an idiot. I ran a hand through my hair, totally conflicted, my eyes landing on her pained face. For some reason, it reminded me of that plucked pheasant 15 years ago, shivering in the snow. Different species, sure, but the look of helpless vulnerability was exactly the same. I sighed. Damn my stupid, bleeding heart. I walked back, cautiously nudging the sword with my foot to make sure it wouldn't fly up and attack me on its own. Then I knelt and poked her shoulder. Hey, you still alive? No response. I gritted my teeth, sucked it up, and scooped her off the floor. She was light as a feather, no pun intended, and burning up. A fever? Do mythical creatures get fevers? I carried her into the back room and laid her on my twin bed. Looking at her face, I just couldn't reconcile this beautiful woman with a naked, shivering bird. I felt her forehead. It was terrifyingly hot. This was a problem. I'm a cook, not a doctor. Especially not a doctor for a vengeful pheasant spirit who wants me dead. I sat by the bed, staring at her flushed cheeks, and thought, maybe a cold compress? I got a bowl of cold water, soaked a dish rag, and laid it across her forehead. The sudden cold made her flinch and let out a soft moan. I watched her, a storm of emotions churning inside me. What a mess. She didn't wake up until noon the next day. I hadn't slept a wink, just sat there watching her, terrified she'd wake up in the middle of the night and run me through. She opened her eyes, looking disoriented for a moment. Then her gaze fell on me, and the murderous glint returned. She shot up, her hand instinctively reaching for her sword. It wasn't there. My sword, she demanded, her eyes darting around the room. I put it away, I said, pointing to a locked cabinet in the corner. You're not getting it back until you decide not to kill me. She glared at me with a look that could curdle milk. What do you want? I don't want anything, I said, holding up my hands to show I was harmless. I just want to live. On a related note, are you hungry? She paused. Right on cue, her stomach let out an audible growl. A blush spread across her face, starting at her cheeks and creeping all the way to her ears. So, mythical creatures get embarrassed, too. Good to know. Trying to hide a smile, I turned and went to the kitchen. For now, the ball was in my court. To stay alive, I had to keep this girl happy. And the one thing I was good at was cooking. I rummaged through the fridge. All I had were a few eggs and some greens. A simple chicken noodle soup it is. I boiled the water, dropped in the noodles, and in a separate pan, fried an egg until it was golden brown on both sides. I blanched the greens and arranged them in a bowl. I strained the noodles, poured my secret recipe chicken broth over them, and topped it all off with a beautiful sunny-side-up egg. A steaming, fragrant bowl of soup, ready to go. I brought it to her. Here. She stared at the bowl with a strange expression. What is this? It's soup, I said, a little surprised. You've never had it. She shook her head. I forgot. She's a bird. She probably just eats bugs and seeds. You didn't poison it, did you? She asked, eyeing me suspiciously. I rolled my eyes. If I wanted you dead, I had about 800 opportunities last night. You think I'd waste a perfectly good egg? Eggs are expensive right now. That seemed to shut her up. She picked up the fork and awkwardly poked at a noodle. She ate slowly, carefully, as if she were sampling some rare delicacy. A bite of noodle, a sip of broth. When she finally ate the egg, I saw her eyes light up for a second. Before long, the bowl was empty. She hadn't even left a drop of broth. She set the bowl down and looked at me, the icy mask on her face having thawed considerably. My name is Serafina, she said. Leo, I replied. Why? Why didn't you run? She asked, getting to the heart of the matter. If I ran, you'd hunt me down, and I can't win a fight against you, I said honestly. Besides, you were passed out cold. What if I just left you on the street and some weirdo found you? I'm just a nice guy, I guess. Serafina fell silent. She looked down, lost in thought. After a long moment, she finally spoke. My life force was severely damaged 15 years ago. Now, around the full moon, my powers become unstable and my body grows weak. It clicked, so that's why she suddenly collapsed. It was her time of the month, magically speaking. So, you can't kill me right now? I asked tentatively. She looked up and shot me a glare. The moment I recover, you're the first to go. I shrank back a little. Okay, so one bowl of soup wasn't enough to erase a 15-year-old grudge. So, I rubbed my hands together, deciding to try reasoning with her. Ms. Serafina, look, about what happened 15 years ago. I get that it was messed up, and I apologize. But my intentions were good. I was trying to save another living creature. So can we maybe call a truce? A truce. Serafina scoffed. How about you try getting plucked bald and see how you feel? I don't have feathers. I muttered. What was that? Nothing, I said quickly, straightening up. My point is, an eye for an eye leaves everyone blind. You're not feeling well. Why don't you just stay here? Let me cook for you, get you back on your feet. Once you're all healed up, you can go your way, and we'll call it even. How about that? I was making a deal with my own would-be murderer, but I was out of options. I had to convince her to give up this revenge quest. Serafina looked at me, a flicker of something in her eyes. The food you make, is that available every day? She asked. An opening. I nodded eagerly. Absolutely. You name it. I'll make it. Surf, turf, whatever you want. If I can get my hands on it, it's yours. I immediately regretted that phrasing. She was technically turf. Luckily, Serafina didn't seem to notice my slip-up. She thought for a moment, then nodded. Fine, I'll spare you until my injuries are healed. She paused, then added, once you're no longer useful to me, I will kill you. I allowed a long sigh of relief. Whatever. For now, I was alive. And just like that, I ended up with a new roommate in my little diner, a mythical pheasant woman who spent her days plotting my demise. Leo, I want a perfectly clarified chicken consommé. Leo, I want a vegetable brunoise so fine it's like a paste. Leo, I want beef Wellington. Ever since Serafina moved in, my culinary skills were forced into overdrive. She did nothing all day but sit under the old oak tree in the backyard, reading some ancient-looking book she'd found and calling out the names of absurdly difficult dishes every few hours. They were all things you'd see in a Michelin star restaurant. Come on, do I look like a celebrity chef? I said, wiping sweat from my brow as I came out of the kitchen, apron on. Where am I supposed to get the ingredients for beef Wellington? And besides, you're a bird. Isn't eating beef, like, weird for you? Serafina looked up from her book and gave me a cool glance. I'm a pheasant, not a cow. And I am a supernatural being, not livestock. Yeah, you're a special snowflake. I grumbled, wiping my hands. Well, beef Wellington is not on the menu. Take it or leave it. I placed a plate of steaming, spicy jambalaya on the stone table. The sausage was rich and savory. The shrimp was perfectly cooked, and the whole thing was topped with fresh green onions. Serafina's nose twitched. She put down her book, picked up a fork, and took a bite. Her eyes went wide. What is this? She asked, her mouth full. Jambalaya. Just a simple home-style dish, I said with a proud smirk. For the next few minutes, I witnessed a culinary demolition. She devoured the entire plate, then used a piece of bread to mop up every last bit of sauce. When she was done, she leaned back in her chair and let out a contented sigh. The permanent frost on her face seemed to have melted a few degrees. Leo, with skills like this, it's a shame you're not a famous chef. What do you mean? I am, I said, pointing to myself, the one and only executive chef of Leo's place. Serafina glanced around at the peeling paint and empty tables. She didn't say anything, but her look of disdain was loud and clear. I didn't care. After a few weeks of this, I'd realized Serafina wasn't as terrifying as she seemed. She was just a proud, slightly vengeful, and extremely greedy problem child. As long as I kept her mouth full of good food, her murderous intent seemed to vanish. I was even starting to think she'd forgotten all about killing me. Then one night, as I was in the kitchen figuring out what new dish to surprise Serafina with, an unexpected visitor arrived. Another woman, and she was of course drop-dead gorgeous. She wore a lavender dress, and her eyes crinkled when she smiled, revealing two faint dimples. "Excuse me, is Leo here?" she asked, her voice as smooth as silk. I peeked out from the kitchen, confused. I felt like I'd seen her somewhere before. "That's me. Can I help you?" Her smile deepened. "You don't remember me? 15 years ago, the abandoned chapel. You gave me a pheasant." A loud buzzing filled my head. Oh no, not another one. This time it was the fox. I instinctively took a step back, my hand grabbing a nearby rolling pin. "What? What do you want?" My reaction seemed to surprise her, and then she let out a musical laugh. "What's with the welcome wagon? My name is Luna. I'm here to repay your kindness." She pulled out a small, ornate box from behind her back. "I know you're a chef, so I brought you some specialties for my people. 100-year-old ginseng root, and some mushrooms that can enhance your vitality." Repay my kindness? My heart rate slowed down a little. See, some mythical creatures actually followed the script. I took the box and opened it. Inside, nestled on a bed of silk, was a root that vaguely resembled a human figure and several mushrooms that glowed with a faint, ethereal light. This is too much. Compared to you saving my life, it's nothing," Luna said, her eyes scanning the diner before landing on Serafina, who had just walked out from the back room. The moment she saw Serafina, Luna's expression shifted. And the moment Serafina saw Luna, her face turned to stone. The air grew thick with a tense, awkward silence. I was stuck in the middle, feeling like the meat in a very weird sandwich. "And who is this?" Luna asked, looking at Serafina with faux innocence. "She's my roommate," I managed to choke out. "Oh, a roommate?" Luna's smile was full of hidden meaning. "Leo, your roommate looks awfully familiar." Serafina just snorted, ignoring her completely. She walked over to me, picked up the ginseng root from the box, and sniffed it. "Leo, stay away from her," Serafina said suddenly, her voice low but firm. "Foxes are nothing but trouble." The smile on Luna's face froze. "I don't know what you mean, Serafina dear. Whatever could my kind have done to offend you?" "Oomph." Serafina tossed the root back into the box. "The reek of cheap perfume is giving me a headache." I saw the two of them squaring off, about to throw down in my tiny diner, and quickly jumped between them. "Hey, let's all just calm down. Luna is a guest. She came to thank me." "Serafina, don't be rude." "Thank you." Serafina raised an eyebrow, glancing from me to Luna with pure contempt. "Leo, are you an idiot? If she really wanted to thank you, where has she been for the last 15 years? Why show up now of all times? Use your head." She had a point. "Why now?" Luna's expression faltered for a second before she recovered her smile. I was in a deep meditative trance to complete my transformation. I only recently mastered my human form, which is why I was delayed. "But you, Serafina dear, I heard you were the princess of your clan. What happened to you? Why are you hiding out in a place like this with a mere mortal?" The words hit their mark. Serafina's face went white, and she clenched her fists, seeing things were about to escalate. I quickly started pushing Luna toward the door. "Luna, it's getting late. Why don't you head home for now? I really appreciate the gift. I'll treat you to dinner sometime to thank you properly." I managed to usher her to the doorway. She gave Serafina one last, long look, then turned to me with a seductive smile. "I'd like that. But Leo, be careful. Some creatures aren't as simple as they appear on the surface." With that, she turned and vanished into the night. I closed the door and let out a sigh of relief. When I turned around, I was met with Serafina's icy stare. "Leo, I'm warning you. You're not to see that fox again." "Why not?" I asked, confused. "She was just trying to be nice." "Nice?" Serafina scoffed. "She smelled it on you. She's after something I have." "What do you have?" I asked curiously. Serafina pressed her lips together and said nothing. "Just stay away from her," she finally said. "If you don't, you won't even know what hit you." She threw that parting shot over her shoulder and went to her room, slamming the door behind her. I looked at the closed door, then at the box of valuable gifts on the table, feeling like my brain was about to short-circuit. How did this 15-year-old good deed get so complicated? Luna's appearance shattered the fragile peace between me and Serafina. Serafina grew even quieter, spending all her time with that old book, barely paying attention even when she ate. And I was trapped in a state of deep confusion. One of them wanted to kill me, the other wanted to thank me. One said the other was evil, the other implied her rival was dangerous. I was just a mortal, caught between two powerful supernatural beings, and the stress was killing me. A few nights later, after I'd closed the diner, I was cleaning up in the backyard when Luna appeared again. She wore the same cheerful smile, as if their last unpleasant encounter had never happened. "Leo, did you use the gifts I gave you?" "Not yet," I answered honestly. "They seem too valuable. I don't know how." "Let me teach you," she said, moving closer. A faint, pleasant fragrance wafted from her, nothing like the cheap perfume Serafina had mentioned. "The ginseng root, stewed with the mushrooms I gave you, will make a soup that's very good for you. It can extend your life, protect you from illness." She looked at me, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight. "You saved me, so of course I must repay you." I was actually touched. See, there were good, grateful supernatural beings out there. "Actually, I came tonight to warn you about something," Luna said, her tone shifting. "What is it?" "Your roommate, Serafina. You'd be wise to stay away from her." I froze. Why did that sound so familiar? Why? She is the princess of the pheasant clan, of noble blood. But 15 years ago, she was gravely wounded, and a great treasure was stolen from her. It damaged her life force and crippled her power. Luna lowered her voice, speaking in a conspiratorial whisper. "She's been hunting for her enemy, and for that treasure, ever since. The attack changed her. She's become cruel and murderous. You are in great danger being around her." My heart skipped a beat. Gravely wounded? A stolen treasure? That matched what Serafina herself had told me. So, what treasure did she lose? Luna shook her head. "I can't say. All I can tell you is that countless powerful beings covet it. Serafina is a walking treasure chest, which also makes her a walking disaster. Keeping her around will only bring you misfortune." She finished by patting my shoulder, her voice full of sincerity. "Leo, you're a good person. Take my advice and find a way to make her leave. If you don't, you'll regret it." Luna left. I stood alone in the yard for a long time. The moonlight stretched my shadow long and thin. My mind was a tangled mess. Serafina said Luna was after her treasure. Luna said Serafina was a magnet for trouble. Who was lying? Or were they both telling the truth? I went back inside and found Serafina sitting at the table, a cup of long cold tea in front of her. "Did the fox come see you again?" she asked without looking up. "Yeah." "What did she say?" "Nothing much. Just catching up." I lied, not wanting to make things worse. Serafina looked up, her eyes locking on mine. "Leo, do you believe her, or do you believe me?" It was a question I couldn't answer. I remained silent. The light in Serafina's eyes slowly dimmed. She gave a bitter, self-deprecating laugh. "You're right. After all, I'm the one who wants to kill you. And she's the one you saved." She stood up and walked slowly back to her room. Watching her leave for the first time, I felt a pang of pity for the pheasant woman who was determined to kill me. In the days that followed, Serafina and I were in a cold war. She wouldn't speak to me unless necessary and stopped requesting special dishes. She ate whatever I made in silence, then retreated to her room. The tension in the diner was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I wanted to ask her what really happened 15 years ago, but one look at her frosty face and the words always died in my throat. Until one night, I was woken by the sound of muffled crying. It was coming from Serafina's room. My heart clenched. I threw on a shirt and crept to her door. It was slightly ajar, leaving a small crack. I peered through and saw Serafina curled up on her bed, her shoulders shaking. She was having a nightmare. "No. Stay back," she mumbled, her voice thick with fear. "My feathers. My phoenix feather. Why? Luna. Why was it you?" I felt a jolt run through me. "Luna?" I held my breath and kept listening. "It hurts. My life force. Give it back. That human. Why did he help her?" The broken fragments of her dream began to form a mosaic in my mind, telling a completely different story. A horrifying story. 15 years ago, the one who attacked Serafina was the white fox, Luna. Luna coveted the golden phoenix feather within Serafina's body, the ultimate treasure of her clan, said to help supernatural beings break through their limits. She ambushed the young Serafina, plucked her of her sacred feathers, and shattered her life force. And me, Leo, a random human passing by, showed up at that exact moment. To escape and cover her crime, Luna pretended to be weak and dying to win my sympathy. And I, the idiot, gave the plucked, half-dead pheasant to her. From Seraphina's perspective, I had conspired with the fox to steal her treasure and humiliate her. That's why she hated me, and she hated the fox. And Luna, who had vanished for all these years, had been trying to absorb the phoenix feather's power. But because she wasn't of the right bloodline, she couldn't fully integrate it, and her power stalled. Recently, she must have sensed Seraphina's residual energy growing stronger, guessing she was finding a way to heal, and came to finish the job and steal the rest. Her act of repaying kindness was just a ploy to get close to me, to use me against Seraphina. I leaned against the cold wall, a chill spreading through my limbs. I thought I had done a good deed, but I was an accomplice. I thought Luna was a grateful angel, but she was the real monster. And I, the fool who was kept in the dark, had almost driven away the real victim. I pushed the door open and walked in. The noise woke Seraphina. She looked at me with alarm, tear tracks still glistening on her cheeks. "You?" I walked to the bed and sat down beside her. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice hoarse. Seraphina stared at me, stunned. "For what happened 15 years ago, I'm sorry," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "I didn't know. I honestly had no idea." Seraphina's body went rigid. She looked at me, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. "How could you?" "I heard you just now," I said with a bitter smile. Turns out I was the biggest idiot in the whole story. The room was filled with a long, heavy silence. The look in Seraphina's eyes shifted from shock to suspicion and finally to something softer. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, a slight tremor in her voice. "You don't have to." I stood up, walked to the cabinet in the corner, unlocked it, and took out the long sword I had hidden. I held it out to her. "This is yours. You can kill me now." I closed my eyes. "I owe you that." I waited. The pain I expected never came. I opened my eyes. Seraphina was holding the sword, but her hand was shaking. Her eyes were red. A single tear rolled down her cheek and fell onto the cold steel of the blade. You idiot," she whispered. With the misunderstanding cleared, the wall between us finally came crashing down. She was still sharp-tongued, but her gaze had softened. She stopped scowling all the time and would occasionally grace my cooking with a clipped, "It's adequate." Coming from her, I knew that was the highest possible praise. But we both knew the real danger hadn't passed. Luna was a venomous snake hiding in the shadows, ready to strike at any moment. "We can't just sit around and wait," I said, flipping vegetables in a wok. Seraphina was supervising from a small stool by the kitchen door. "And do what?" she asked, flipping through a cookbook with an air of boredom. "Are you going to fight her?" "I can't, but you can, can't you?" "My life force is damaged. I have less than 1/10 of my real power." "Why else do you think I've been wasting my time with a mortal like you?" she said, rolling her eyes. I placed a freshly cooked plate of Cajun blackened chicken in front of her. "Try this." She took a bite, and her eyes lit up. "So our top priority is to heal you," I said, pressing my advantage. "Your life force. How do we fix it?" Seraphina paused, her fork hovering in the air. She put it down, her expression turning serious. "It's difficult. The source of my phoenix feather was damaged. It needs to be nourished by a celestial treasure with immense life energy. That kind of thing is almost impossible to find." "What about the stuff Luna gave me?" I asked, gesturing to the box on top of the cabinet. "The ginseng root has some energy, but it's not old enough. As for the mushrooms," Seraphina scoffed, "they're laced with spirit-locking powder. Any supernatural being who eats them will have their power suppressed." She was trying to neutralize both of us. A shiver went down my spine. That woman was pure evil. "Is there any other way?" I asked, refusing to give up. Seraphina considered this for a moment. "There is one other possibility. Legend says that the greatest mortal chefs can use the pure essence of culinary fire to harmonize yin and yang, awakening the deepest life force within ingredients. If we could find one of the legendary 7 flavors chefs, they could use their chef spark to cook a celestial treasure. It might be enough to restore me." 7 flavor chefs? Chef Espak. I felt like she was speaking another language. They are 7 mortals whose culinary skills have reached a divine level. When they cook, they can infuse their own spiritual will into the food, turning the mundane into the magical, she explained. But it's just a legend. No one has heard of anyone actually finding one of these chefs for centuries. I fell silent. That sounded even less likely than finding a random celestial treasure. Just as we were feeling hopeless, trouble found us. That night, just after we closed, a group of slick-looking thugs in cheap suits burst in. Their leader was a man with beady eyes and a pointed face, like a weasel. He sniffed the air, and his gaze swept the room before locking onto Serafina. "This is the place?" he sneered. "That's her boss. The one with the Pheasant clan's treasure," one of his cronies shouted, pointing at Serafina. My stomach dropped. They were here for her. I immediately moved in front of Serafina, grabbing my trusty rolling pin. "Who are you people? What do you want?" The weasel-faced man, who they called the boss, ignored me, his eyes leering at Serafina. "TSK. A little rough around the edges, but still a beauty. Sweetheart, hand over that phoenix feather, and I'll make sure you live a life of luxury." "What do you say?" "Get out," Serafina said from behind me, her voice dripping with ice. "Playing hard to get, huh?" The boss's face darkened. He waved a hand. "Get her, and break the guy's legs, and toss him in the alley." The thugs charged forward with a yell. I swung the rolling pin, my heart pounding. I was seriously outnumbered. Just as a fist was about to connect with my face, Serafina moved. She was a blur. One moment she was behind me, the next she was in front of the thug, a single, powerful kick sending him flying across the room like a rag doll, crashing through several tables. "You touch him, you die," Serafina said, her voice quiet but filled with absolute authority. I stared, dumbfounded. Him? Was she talking about me? A strange warmth spread through my chest. The boss was clearly not expecting Serafina to be a fighter. He looked surprised for a second, then his face twisted into a nasty grin. "A feisty one. Looks like I'll have to get serious if you won't cooperate." He pulled a yellowed piece of paper from his coat, a talisman of some sort, and began chanting. A thick, foul-smelling yellow smoke poured from the paper, instantly filling the diner. The moment I inhaled the smoke, my head started to spin and my limbs felt like lead. "It's a paralytic agent. Hold your breath," Serafina yelled, but it was too late. My knees buckled and I collapsed to the floor. Serafina wasn't doing much better. She swayed on her feet, her face pale. The smoke was affecting her, too. "Ha," the boss cackled. "No matter how powerful you are, one whiff of my weasel's kiss, and you'll be putty in my hands." He advanced on us slowly. I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't respond. "This is it. We're really done for this time." I watched in despair as the boss reached for Serafina. Just then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. On the prep counter, a brand new, open bag of flour I was going to use to make donuts in the morning. With the last of my strength, I grabbed a salt shaker from a nearby table and hurled its contents at the boss's face. "Act!" he screamed, clawing at his salt-filled eyes. Now, using the rolling pin as a crutch, I lunged for the counter, grabbed the 20-pound bag of flour, and with a primal roar, threw it at him with everything I had. Poof! The bag exploded, and a massive cloud of white powder filled the room. Everyone was instantly blinded, coughing and sputtering. I grabbed Serafina's hand and yelled, "Run!" We burst out of the diner and disappeared into the labyrinth of dark alleyways behind it. We ran until our lungs burned, ducking and weaving through the maze until the shouts behind us faded into silence. I leaned against a brick wall, gasping for air. Serafina was in worse shape. She was slumped against the wall, barely able to stand. The smoke had affected her powers far more than my muscles. You okay?" I panted. She shook her head, her face as white as a sheet. "Leo," she said, looking at me with a complex expression. "Why did you save me? You could have just run." "Are you kidding me?" I said, out of breath. "You're my problem now. Who else is going to save you?" The words were out of my mouth before I realized how they sounded. Serafina stared at me, and an unnatural flush rose on her pale cheeks. It could have been from the exertion, or it could have been something else. "Whose? Your problem? Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, though it lacked its usual bite. I just grinned, too tired to argue. "We found an abandoned warehouse to hide in for the night." "Now what?" I asked. "We can't go back to the diner." That weasel and his crew are probably waiting for us. This is all your fault. Serafina glared at me. If it weren't for a clumsy mortal like you holding me back, I never would have been in this mess. Yep, all my fault, I said, surrendering. So what's the plan, Your Highness? She shot me another glare, then turned away. Luna is definitely looking for us, she said in a low voice. Those weasels were probably her scouts. She was using them to test my strength. I nodded. That made sense. Then we really can't afford to wait around, I said. We have to find a way to heal you. How? Where are we going to find a 7-flavor chef? She asked, her voice laced with despair. Seeing her so defeated made my own heart sink. Suddenly, an idea sparked in my mind. Serafina, these 7-flavor chefs, do they have any special characteristics? Characteristics? She thought for a moment. The legends say their understanding of ingredients transcends the mortal realm. They can communicate with the food. And their cooking, it can make you taste emotions. Taste emotions? Yes. Joy, anger, sorrow, bliss, love, hate, and desire. 7 emotions for 7 chefs. I froze. I thought about my grandfather. He was a chef, too. He left me the diner. He always used to say that the most important ingredient was heart. Food made with heart had a soul. He once made a dish for me he called soup of 100 tastes. It was a strange soup. The first sip was bitter, like the tears of failure. The second was sour, like the ache of unrequited love. The third was spicy, like the fire of youthful rebellion. But the final taste, the one that lingered, was a deep, profound sweetness, like the peace that comes after a long, hard journey. I was too young to understand it then, but thinking about it now, I think I knew one. I whispered. Who? Serafina demanded. My grandfather. I told her about my grandfather and the soup of 100 tastes. When I finished, her eyes were shining. To create a dish that contains emotions. Your grandfather might have been one of them. But he passed away years ago, I said, my own excitement fading. The light in her eyes dimmed again. However, I added he left a cookbook. I could never make sense of it. It's full of weird symbols and strange theories about heat and state of mind. Where is this cookbook? Serafina asked, grabbing my arm. In my family's old house. It's not far from here. Let's go. Now, my family's old home was a classic Victorian, long since abandoned and overgrown with weeds. Following a distant memory, I found a hidden compartment in the study and pulled out a cloth-wrapped, yellow journal. On the cover, written in elegant calligraphy, were the words, The Culinary Codex. I handed it to Serafina. She took it with reverence and opened it to the first page. After one glance, she gasped, This is written in the ancient tongue of the spirits. The what? I leaned in a look. The script looked like gibberish to me. It's an ancient, magical language. Very few beings can still read it, Serafina said, her expression a mix of awe and excitement. Now, who was your grandfather? I shook my head. I'd always thought he was just a simple cook. Now, it seemed he was hiding a universe of secrets. What does it say? I asked impatiently. She turned the pages, her eyes growing wider with each one. This isn't just a cookbook, she murmured. It's a guide to spiritual cultivation. It teaches how one can use the art of cooking to refine the spirit, to communicate with the world, and to finally achieve a state of the heart as the flame, the will as the knife. In English, please. Basically, your grandfather was a true culinary grandmaster. He found a way to infuse his spiritual energy into his food. This codex is his life's work. She looked at me, her eyes burning with intensity. Leo, you've struck gold. If this book ever got out, the entire supernatural world would go to war over it. I swallowed hard. So, can it heal you? That was all I cared about. Yes, she answered without hesitation. The final chapter describes a recipe called Phoenix Ambrosia. It's designed specifically for my clan. It uses the unique properties of the Phoenix bloodline to channel worldly energy, rebuild the life force, and can even trigger an ancestral rebirth. A true nirvana. I was overjoyed. What are we waiting for? Let's make it. We can't, she said, dousing my excitement with cold water. Why not? The recipe has extreme requirements for both the ingredients and the chef. It needs at least 5 different celestial treasures, all with immense life energy, and their properties must not conflict. As for the chef, they must have mastered the chef spark. Chef es spark? It's what the Codex calls the heart as the flame. It's not a real fire, but a fire of the spirit. Only a chef whose skill and spirit have reached the absolute pinnacle can master it. She looked at me and sighed. Your grandfather must have mastered it. But you... She didn't have to finish. I was nowhere near that level. My shoulders slumped. So it was all for nothing. But, Serafina said, her tone shifting, it's not entirely hopeless. What do you mean? This codex is the ultimate training manual. Your grandfather detailed every step and every insight on the path to mastering the chef spark. If you follow his instructions with your natural talent, you might just be able to do it. My talent? I asked, pointing at myself. Yes, she said, nodding seriously. You may act like a slacker, but when you cook, you're completely focused. Your heart is pure, free from distractions. That's the most important quality for a great chef. You just lack the proper guidance. I felt a little embarrassed by her praise. What about the ingredients? That, Serafina frowned. 5 celestial treasures won't be easy to find. The 100-year-old ginseng from Luna counts as 1, but we still need 4 more. Just then, we heard a faint sound of footsteps outside the warehouse. Serafina and I exchanged a look, instantly on alert. Who's there? I whispered. A timid voice answered from outside the door. Is Leo here? I paused. The voice was familiar. I opened the door to find a skinny high school kid in a faded school uniform and black-rimmed glasses. He was holding a small basket. Kevin. I recognized him. He was a kid from my neighborhood whose parents worked out of state. He lived alone and often ate at the diner. I always made sure to give him an extra egg. Leo, Kevin said, looking relieved to see me. I heard some guys trash your diner. I was worried. I don't have much, but these are peaches from the tree in my backyard. My grandma said my great-grandma planted it, so it's really old. I thought you might like some. He held out the basket. Inside were several perfect, blushing peaches, giving off an incredible aroma. I was about to politely decline when Serafina grabbed my arm. She was staring intently at the basket, her breathing growing shallow. That's an Empyrean peach. It's a lower grade, but it still contains a trace of celestial energy, she sent a thought directly into my mind. I was floored. Talk about a lucky break. I looked at the earnest young man in front of me, a warmth spreading through my chest. Kevin, thank you. I'd love them. I took the basket, and another thought occurred to me. Hey, we're kind of between places right now. Do you know anywhere around here that's safe and secluded? Kevin thought for a moment, then his eyes lit up. I know a place. There's an abandoned conservatory on the east side of town. It's huge, and nobody ever goes there. I used to explore it when I was a kid. Serafina and I looked at each other. It was the perfect hiding place. And so, armed with a mystical cookbook and a basket containing a celestial treasure, we made our way to the abandoned conservatory. A final showdown, one of both cooking and survival, was about to begin. The abandoned conservatory was even more desolate than I had imagined. The massive glass dome of the main greenhouse was shattered in places, and the plants inside, left untended for years, had grown into a wild, tangled jungle. Vines choked the walls and pathways. It felt like a green kingdom forgotten by time. It was eerie, silent, and the perfect place to hide from our enemies. We set up a base in a relatively intact tool shed. The days that followed were a grueling culinary boot camp. During the day, I followed the instructions in the culinary codex, starting from the very basics of knife work and heat control. Before, when I chopped vegetables, I focused on speed and precision. Now, I had to feel every fiber of the ingredient as the blade passed through it to achieve a state of resonance. Before, I controlled the heat by watching the oil and the color of the food. Now, I had to use my heart to feel the emotion of the flame. Was it angry, gentle, or passionate? It sounded crazy, but as I dedicated myself to it, a new world opened up to me. I could feel the humble spirit of a potato, the crisp energy of a bell pepper, the resilient strength of a cut of beef. They were no longer just ingredients. They were living things, each with its own personality. Serafina became my tutor and my critic. She didn't know how to cook, but her sensitivity to energy was far beyond mine. Wrong. Your mind wandered when you cut that block of tofu. The tip of your knife carried a trace of aggression. It disturbed the tofu's serenity. Too much heat. The freshness of this fish is already starting to fade. You must envelop it with your heart's flame, not scorch it. She directed me from the sidelines, more invested than I was. At night, Serafina would teach me the ancient script, explaining the profound theories in the codex. In return, I would use my day's practice to cook her a grand dinner. And though she often complained that my food lacked soul, she never failed to clean her plate. Under this intense training, I felt myself improving every day. My knife skills became steadier, my control over the heat more precise. Most importantly, I began to feel a faint flicker within my chest, a small flame that seemed to dance with my breath and emotions. It was the beginning of the chef's spark. The problem of the ingredients was also being solved in the most unexpected ways. One day, as I was practicing my knife work, carving a carrot into the shape of a phoenix, a beautiful, multicolored butterfly landed on my creation, drawn by its form. Serafina's eyes lit up. She told me it was a dream-wing butterfly, and its dust was a powerful ingredient for calming the spirit. Another day, we found a translucent, glowing mushroom growing in the corner of the tool shed, its cap shimmering as if filled with stars. Serafina identified it as a starlight cap, a treasure that had absorbed the essence of the moonlight. And once, a lost pangolin dug up a black, truffle-like object that smelled of rich earth. After examining it, Serafina excitedly told me it was a legendary earth heart root, capable of reinforcing one's foundation. With the 100-year-old ginseng from Luna and the Empyrean peach from Kevin, we had them. The 5 celestial treasures, gathered through a series of unbelievable coincidences. I stared at the 5 items, each glowing with a different colored light, feeling like I was in a dream. It's fate. This is all fate, Serafina whispered. Leo, perhaps you are the chosen one. I gave a weak smile. I didn't care if I was the chosen one. All I knew was that the final battle was fast approaching. My chef spark had grown from a flicker to a steady, warm flame. It was time to attempt the Phoenix Ambrosia. The process of creating the Phoenix Ambrosia was far more difficult and dangerous than I ever could have imagined. We chose the center of the largest greenhouse as our stage. Moonlight streamed down through the broken glass dome, bathing the ruined space in a sacred light. Following the instructions in the codex, I began to process the 5 celestial treasures in a specific order, using specific techniques. Each step required me to infuse my chef spark into the ingredients, merging my spiritual energy with their natural power. It was incredibly draining. After just processing the first ingredient, the ginseng root, my forehead was slick with sweat and my face was pale. Serafina stood guard nearby, looking even more nervous than I felt. By the time all 5 ingredients were processed and had merged into a 5-colored sphere of light floating in midair, I felt like I was about to collapse. Leo, hang in there. Serafina encouraged me. This is the last step. Ignite the core. I took a deep breath, gathered every last ember of my chef's spark, and forged it into the shape of an invisible, fiery phoenix, which I sent flying toward the sphere of light. Boom! The sphere erupted with a blinding light, and a powerful shockwave of energy tore through the greenhouse. Shards of glass rained down from the dome. The force of the blast sent me flying backward. I felt a sweet, metallic taste in my mouth as I coughed up blood. But the sphere of light, now enveloped by my spiritual phoenix, began to spin violently, its shape constantly changing. Just then, a slow, mocking clap echoed from the entrance of the greenhouse. Clap, clap, clap. What a spectacular performance. I never thought a mere mortal like you could actually master the chef spark. Luna, dressed in a sleek black catsuit, strolled into the room. Behind her stood the weasel-faced boss and a whole gang of menacing, supernatural thugs. Luna. Serafina's face hardened, and she immediately stepped in front of me. My dear sister, no need to be so tense, Luna purred, licking her lips, her eyes fixed greedily on the transforming sphere of light. I've waited 15 years for this day. I'll gladly take the fruits of the Phoenix Ambrosia off your hands. In your dreams, Serafina snarled. her body weak but her spirit unbroken. "You in what army?" Luna scoffed. "You can barely stand." At her signal, the weasel and his thugs charged. "Leo, you have to go. Finish the final step," Serafina yelled, pushing me away as she turned to face the oncoming horde. I knew this was no time to hesitate. I struggled to my feet, sat cross-legged, and tried to refocus my mind to control the chef's bar for the final, crucial step. But Luna's target wasn't Serafina. She moved like a phantom, slipping past the fight and appearing in front of me in an instant, her palms striking down toward my head. "Look out!" Serafina cried out, trying to get to me, but she was pinned down by the weasel. I watched, helpless, as Luna's deadly hand grew larger and larger in my vision. This is how I die. In that final, desperate moment, a golden light erupted from my chest, forming a shimmering shield that blocked Luna's attack. The force of the impact sent Luna staggering back with a cry of surprise. I looked down and saw the source of the light. A simple wooden charm I'd worn around my neck since I was a kid. My grandfather gave it to me before he died, telling me an old monk had blessed it and it would keep me safe. I had always thought it was just a piece of wood. A holy artifact. Luna's face contorted with rage. "Who in the world was your grandfather?" I didn't have time to answer. Seizing the opportunity, I focused my will one last time. "Condense!" I roared. The sphere of light imploded, all of its energy and light folding inward, until it transformed into a bowl of clear, shimmering broth that seemed to contain a galaxy of stars. It floated silently in the air. It was done. The Phoenix Ambrosia. "No!" Luna shrieked in fury and lunged for me again. But she was too late. With my last ounce of strength, I pushed the bowl through the air towards Serafina. "Drink it!" Serafina kicked the weasel away, leaped into the air, caught the bowl, and drank its contents without a moment's hesitation. The next second, a brilliant, blinding light exploded from her body. A clear, powerful cry, like that of a phoenix, echoed through the night sky. When the light faded, Serafina stood in its place. She looked the same, but her entire presence had changed. If before she was a sharp sword hidden in its sheath, now she was the brilliant sun, blazing in the heavens. A small, golden flame symbol had appeared on her forehead. Her eyes were calm, serene, yet they held the power to command the world. Just by standing there, she emitted an immense pressure that made every other supernatural being in the room gasp for air. That's the Phoenix aura." The weasel boss stammered, so terrified he collapsed on the ground. "Impossible. You actually achieved nirvana." Luna's face was a mask of disbelief and terror. Serafina didn't speak. She simply raised a hand, pointed a single finger at Luna, and a small, golden flame shot from its tip. The flame looked small, almost gentle, but Luna reacted as if she had seen the face of death itself. She screamed and tried to run. The flame followed her, fast as thought, and entered her body. Luna froze. A moment later, golden fire erupted from her eyes, ears, and mouth. She didn't even have time to scream again before she was reduced to ashes. A powerful spirit, wiped from existence in an instant. The remaining thugs, witnessing this, scattered in terror, tripping over each other to escape. The greenhouse was suddenly silent. Serafina turned and walked toward me. I leaned against a pillar, managed a weak grin, and then the world went black. I don't know how long I was out. When I woke up, I was in my own bed. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and comforting. I smelled something familiar. Food. I struggled to sit up and saw Serafina at the table, awkwardly trying to ladle something from a pot into a bowl. "You're awake," she said when she saw me, a hint of a blush on her cheeks. "You must be hungry. I made something." I looked at her, then at the black, lumpy substance in the bowl that she was attempting to serve me, and I smiled. "You cooked." She grunted, handing me the bowl without meeting my eyes. "Take it or leave it." I took the bowl and put a spoonful in my mouth. An indescribable flavor exploded on my tongue. It was salty, bitter, and had a distinct burnt taste. I swear, it was the worst thing I had ever eaten in my life. But I swallowed it without changing my expression. "So," she asked nervously. "Not bad," I nodded. "Remind me of my early work." A light sparked in Serafina's eyes, and the corners of her mouth turned up in an irrepressible smile. In that moment, she didn't look like a celestial phoenix goddess. She just looked like a girl, happy to receive a compliment. I finished the bowl of poison and felt my strength returning. "So, what's next for you?" I asked her. "I don't know," Serafina said, shaking her head. "My revenge is complete. My powers are restored. I guess there's nothing left to do." "Well," I said, trying to sound casual, "you could always stick around. Work at the diner to pay me back for all the food you ate." Serafina stared at me. She just stared for a long time. And then she smiled. A real, genuine, beautiful smile. It was the first time I had ever seen her truly happy. "Fine," she said, "but I expect to be paid. And part of my salary will be a fresh plate of your jambalaya. Every day." "Deal." A few months later, Leo's place reopened its doors, and business was better than ever. It might have had something to do with a ridiculously beautiful new waitress, even if she did scowl all the time and argue with the owner. "Now, the chicken in the jambalaya today wasn't spicy enough. I'm docking your pay." "Serafina, I saw you steal a brownie from a customer's plate. That's coming out of your bonus." My little diner was now filled with the sound of our constant, chaotic bickering, and we were both perfectly happy with that. As for the grudge from 15 years ago, who remembers that stuff anyway? She was stuck with me for life, and that was that. And it was all my fault. I was the one who handed her over in the first place.